like any good baseball team, you need a great closer. When you want to close out the show, you got to close it with style. And we do just that in the middle of a pandemic. Who better to bring on than Jennifer Bohr-Cuevas? She's a great friend of mine in the show. She was hosting with me weekly until we hit this mess of a pandemic. But hey, Jen, how are you?
Hello, my friend. How are you?
You look so vibrant today in yellow, and every week I
Thank you.
see you have a different hairstyle. This is different than last week when you were curly.
I'm running out of options between the root and being without my stylist. So I'm being creative.
So, Jen, this is a perfect segue. Um, a lot of women and men are starting to experience, quarantine fatigue. Like I'm running out of hairstyles, I'm running out of hair dye, I'm running out of patience, basically. And what are the details that people need to know to get to the finish line on this thing and keep themselves mentally sound?
Yeah, quarantine fatigue, it's very real. Social isolation takes a toll. And I want to tell you about a really good study that I read done by the University of Maryland. They worked with these cell phone companies to collect data on people's locations. And what they're finding is that 48 states of the United States have very much so gone back to pre pandemic habits. They're traveling farther, they're going out more often. So, this tells me that people are getting very, very weary of the social distancing. And it's not just about the social distancing. I mean, I think, people are doing the best they can to take care of family members. It's not just about going out to see friends. I mean, it's going out to maybe tend to some of the responsibilities that we have in addition to being social. So, yeah, it really takes a toll. Um, look, I want to go back to what I always have talked about on this show is the mindfulness. And mindfulness can be applied to anything and everything. We have to remember that this is going to pass. It's very important to, live one day at a time. And it's the time to remember that we are not we are not thriving right now. We are surviving. So these are the things you want to self soothe with when you think about maybe doing more than what your state is recommending in terms of going back to pre pandemic habits. And look, the other thing I want to say too, the one thing I'm finding in my own life is that I am thinking about what I want to do differently when this is all over. So, maybe it's time, for people to start thinking about what they want to do differently. This could be a life changer. So, yeah, yeah,
So,
we
Jen,
are.
you continuously, when I have you on, go back to this term mindfulness. Um, and I guess, somewhere in there, it's maybe like a step before meditation. But you got to, I guess, basically keep reminding yourself that, hey, you're not in this alone, that everybody's facing the same thing. I'm not singled out. And it could, one of the things, no matter who I see, no matter who I talk to on the phone, I say, hey, Johnny, how's it going? I constantly been saying, could be worse. I'm happy I'm vertical. And I noticed that, Jen, this is true. I noticed that I say to someone, they say, hey, Johnny, how's it going with you? And I'll say, hey, man, it could be worse. And they say, oh, sorry to hear that. Like, they just hear me say it could be better. They think I'm feeling sorry for myself, just naturally, innately think I'm about to say how bad I'm doing. And I'm saying, hey, I could be worse. The main thing is, we're horizontal. And we got to thank the Lord in heaven every day for that we're not vertical and 6 feet under. Is that part of it? Like thinking that,
Yeah,
hey, there are good
absolutely.
things in the day.
John, you're applying perspective, and perspective is very important in terms of self-soothing. However, we don't want to minimize our own experience. Yesterday, quick, example that was very sobering for me. I was in Stop and Shop doing my food shopping, all gloved up, masked, my sunglasses, and a woman came over to me and she said to me, I've never done this before, but I'm asking you for help. Could you give me some cash just so I can do a little bit of food shopping for my family? And I gave it to her. I would never say no. And it was so sobering for me that I was lucky enough to be able to fill my cart, pay for the cart, and bring it home to my family. And there are other people that can't do that. So, perspective, yes. When you pair that with mindfulness and pair it with the mantra of this will be over at some point, it's the way to cope. And also, I just want to say that remember we are surviving. We are not necessarily thriving right now, and that's okay too. Survival.
Right. And you had, a few weeks back, you had taken me through the stages of, disaster. Um, would you say we're in the recovery stage now? Is that like a bright spot to look for? Like, hey, we made it out of, the emergency state. Now we're in the recovery state. So is that why maybe people are getting out a little more and maybe getting a little too anxious? But are we in recovery now in your view?
Yes, we are. There are still some response mechanisms that you see that are happening for the people who are still being diagnosed, but sometimes response and recovery overlap each other. And before you know it, it will just be recovery. Hopefully we don't have another second wave of this, or the boomerang effect. But yes, we are in recovery. And what is going to be very frustrating for people is seeing how each state does it differently. So, that's something we have to just hold on tight, because our time will come, especially here in New York.
Isn't the shift from response to recovery, shouldn't that bring people's anxiety down a little bit? Like, all right, we're not like shaking and baking. Numbers are coming in, numbers are escalating, the fear, fright, and hysteria of the response. We don't have enough ventilators. We don't have enough masks. Bop, bop, bop. There's like so much noise out there that people start to really panic. That transition into recovery is, all right, we're almost out of this. Um, can people get a little solace in the switch over to recovery?
Yes, I think the pulse I'm getting is that people are happy to be in this recovery phase. However, the brushstrokes of PTSD that a lot of us are going to have is going to kick into action, which means a lot of us will be double checking, double thinking, double guessing whether it's okay, to go back to work, to go into a store, and the list goes on. So that I think we're going to be more anxious than usual. So, but I do think that at the same time, we are going to want to get back into the groove. So it'll be a double-edged sword. But yeah, we're definitely not going to get away unscathed with some PTSD like symptoms, but we'll deal with it, as we go along. And I think once the recovery has really happened and is implemented, I think once people start to get back into their groove, it'll take a life of its own,
All
and
right.
it'll be okay.
All right, Jen, we got to leave it there. But my assumption is we're going to get back into the groove of you being in the studio with us hopefully soon. And things will be looking a lot brighter for me if that's the case.
Oh, I can't wait.
All right. Jennifer Bohr-Cuevas, she's a clinical social worker. She's an expert in disaster recovery and mental health. And She's here for us every weekend, like I'm here for you every single day. We're going to take a quick break, come back right after this, and I'm going to wrap it up for this Women Wednesday. I am missing my buddy Frank, but he'll be joining us again tomorrow. See you in just a minute.